Welcome to the only podcast you will ever need, 6 of one and Bill of the other. And this episode is going to be focused on artificial intelligence. Bill, I've noticed an onslaught recently on YouTube of videos describing how AI is going to take over the world. So I tried out ChatGPT. It freaked me out. I told you about it and I said we should talk about it in a podcast, and that's why we're here today, right now, and I'm thinking, Bill, reassure me about AI because I'm currently scared.
Well, the end is nigh. Enjoy these last few sunsets you can get in. Spend time with your loved ones because it's going to get real bad real soon. I mean,
seriously,
I think...
in what way? Go on, tell me, because I genuinely, since we talked about doing a podcast about AI, I have watched more about what it can do and what it's capable of and what people are using it for. And what started off as me joking about how it's going to spoil things, it has the possibility to make things better and to spoil things. I am actually a bit worried now. I am a bit worried, so I need you to reassure me.
The problem is there's a myriad of ways that can make things worse. There are some benefits to it. I think I'll start with a benefit to it if you want me to put a positive spin, because
Yes.
honestly, I'm pretty scared of it. If I'm being honest, the positive skin. God damn it! All right, cut that. I always
No,
I never do
I
this
like
in real
positive
life.
skin. I always if ever there's a type of skin that I like, it's positive skin.
And
if we ever do any kind of adult movie, me and you, it's going to be called Positive Skin.
in real life, I
Carry
never
on.
do that. And then you turn on the podcast, and I'm just saying this bizarre shit.
No, positive
okay.
skin. Positive skin.
The positive skin about this is that it can augment things that we're not good at. Dude, it almost made me deaf. It was like if you shot an air horn into my ears. Uh-oh. AI attacked me.
I was told that I've got to embrace AI because if I don't, as a content creator, podcaster, YouTuber, whatever, I've got to embrace it because if I don't embrace it, the rest of the world just overtakes me. They embrace the technology, they run with it, and it makes their lives better. So I tried to embrace it. Write me a title, write me a description, write me a thumbnail, show me a thumbnail. And the end result has been nothing. I think that I prefer my own brain.
Yes.
I haven't gained anything from it. Anything from this generic shit that it churns out. I haven't gained anything. I don't gain anything from its podcast, from its thumbnail ideas. I've gained nothing from it so far. And I want you to tell me how I'm supposed to embrace this.
Well, I think the way to look at it is it's going to take you from total inexperience to adequate. It's not going to take you from fully experienced to brilliant. And what I mean by that is it's going to enable you, if you couldn't write titles for your videos before, if you didn't understand how algorithms work, if you didn't understand, like for instance, a story. If I said write a story, there's a basic template for stories that Hollywood uses that's based off of The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And it's called The Monomyth, and it's he took all the stories that everyone's ever told and he sort of parsed out what they all have in common. And if you think of big Hollywood movies, they all have, and I'm going somewhere with this, but they all have a template. So they have your inciting incident. So at the beginning we show you in your normal, everyday life, so we can see where your life is. We something bad happens to you, and you have to go on an adventure. It's much more intricate and defined than that. But for the purpose of what we're talking about, if I then told you every story that Hollywood's made since the beginning of film and said write a story, you could take that template and you could just put things into that template and you could make a very serviceable story. And the more intricate you make it, or the more experience you get at it, you can probably make stuff that's really good. But you're not going to be transcendent. So what this AI is doing is you're putting patterns into it that it recognizes, and it's just putting things into the pattern. I saw a video where someone talked about advertising, and if you say, hey, ChatGPT, make me an advertisement for my restaurant, it's going to always start with the same. It's going to say, other restaurants do this. This is bad. Our restaurant has worked this hard to do good. So you should try. And if you ask it 7 times, you're going to start to see the pattern that it's using. And it's just putting things into that pattern. So my point is, you've been doing this for a few years now. You have your own voice. You have your own style. You kind of know what works for you. So you have your own data set that you're basing it on, where it's just giving you a generic thing. But if you never made a YouTube video before and you have no idea what to do, it's going to get you up to that maybe professional level. It's not going to get you beyond it. And I think that's so if we're going to go further along the lines of the future, if everyone can get to a professional level, it sort of takes away that good feeling of basically all the hard work you spent to get to that place. And then it's only going to be the people that separate themselves above that. So I think, and an example, and I know I'm talking a lot, an example would be when we started making music, I started with a 4-track player where you record, and the best you could do is get a demo that was off time because the tape would play slow, and then you bring it to a studio, and you have to have enough money. You have to understand how to work a lot of really complex analog equipment, and then you have to spend a lot of money, a lot of time. Then you make a professional sounding song, where now there are so many DAWs that you can get. There's USB microphones that have emulators that might not get you exactly where you want to go, but it's going to get you closer. And you can make something that's way more professional sounding with much less money and experience now than you could when we started out. And I think AI is going to do something similar where you can write a story, you can do all these things, and it's going to take everybody, and they're going to start at a higher level. But there's always going to be a point, I think, where it separates. And I've been talking too much because I feel like I could point out in your last thing, I think humor. It was terrible at humor. It gave you what a comedian would call hack humor. Because humor is really difficult because you have to gauge who you're talking to, their life experience, why this is odd. And I don't think AI is sophisticated enough to really get good humor. And I think that's one example of it's not there yet. Will it get there? It might. But I've been talking too much, so I don't know if you...
Sounds like what you're saying is that it can bring someone from a standing start to a level where it's competent quickly. So someone can have never done a podcast or a YouTube video before, and they can type in, create me a thumbnail, please, for this subject. Give me a title. Give me a script. And I've noticed people are doing this now. Some people are doing it for jest. They're saying, look, here's an example of a script. And they'll read it out and they'll say, look what AI can do. But I've noticed that some people are definitely using AI to produce the script for these videos. And if it can, whereas I had to struggle for 7 years to learn how to do it, someone else maybe now using these tools can come up to a level where they are being competent. But I think I agree with you that once it's a bit like when New Labour came into power in like 1997, we'd had the Conservatives and Margaret Thatcher and stuff through the 80s and the 90s. It seemed like we were going to have it forever. And Tony Blair came along for the Labour Party, and he was a breath of fresh air, and it came along with Britpop and the whole Union Jacks flying and the Spice Girls and Ginger Spice wearing the Union Jack dress. And he came up with this vow to say, I want every child, I want everyone to attend university. That's what I want. I want everyone to have a degree. And the end result has been that it almost became like a degree. Everyone had a degree. So a degree was kind of worthless. So then people went, I don't know what the equivalent is in America, but then everyone went to do a master's degree because you can do one above.
Yep.
And then everyone ended up having a master's, and then people went to do a PhD.
Get a doctorate.
So, yeah. So what happened was, once you raise the baseline, it still takes like human ingenuity and human intelligence and emotion and character. So maybe, yes, everyone can now use AI to get their degree, you know, to get their YouTube video, to get their podcast. But so that all it does is raise the base level, yeah? But it still needs a bit of that.
Well, no, it does.
To break
and what
through.
Is it, and what's it basing? Everything it's saying is based off of a data set, so it's only as good as the data it's getting. And I think I read that the ChatGPT, is it ChatGPT? I think anyway.
ChatGPT.
Oh, just see how good I've been. I was hoping I was saying it wrong this whole time.
Papa Tango.
Yeah, GPT. I think the data ended in 2021 that it's based off of. It's not just going off of the internet. So it's only as good as the data that you're putting it into. And I think as human beings, the one thing we're great at is pattern recognition. So I think we'll start to hear everyone sort of starting to sound the same. Yeah. If everyone started to adapt this, and then the people that are going to get flocked to are going to be the ones that sound differently. I always like true crime stuff, and they have the Jim Can't Swim, sort of really, you know, lit up the crime world on fire with his interrogation videos, and now everyone on YouTube that does that sort of video does the same sort of. I am a psychologist, and if you look at the way his left eye is blinking, you can tell that he's trying to hide. And you've heard one, you've heard them all. But then there's a guy called True Crime Loser that I like a lot, and he's a comedian, and he just goes up there and he goes, "Yeah, I watched this," and he just gives commentary and he makes jokes, and it's different. And there, no one else can do what he's doing, because what he's doing is just bringing his personality, a quick wit, and also smart guy. So he also will say, I think they're lying here, but he'll make a joke about it, and he'll just come at it in a perspective only he, as a professional comedian with his particular life experience, could do. And I think at the end of the day, when we're looking at AI when it comes to professional capitalism and all of this stuff, there's a whole other discussion on 9-to-5 work. But when it comes to just the creative aspect of it, people are going to get sick of the formula quick, I think. And it's interesting because I talked about the monomyth, but then I love Stanley Kubrick. He always said, when I'm making a scene or I'm writing something, I ask two questions. Is it real? And is it interesting? And by real, you could write a thing about unicorns, but it means, is it true to how people would actually act if in this position? And is it interesting? And that is something that might be very, very difficult for an AI to be able to tell. Because if you were in a bar and X, Y, and Z happened, instinctively we as humans would know, oh, that's how you'd probably react. Versus when you watch a bad movie and you go, oh, no one would do that. And it's a very complex thing to really be able to say, is this scene authentic? And not in a way, it sounds stuffy, but all authentic means is you believe it. And whether it's a comedy or anything, and the more you believe it, the more interesting it is. So I think it'll maybe, hopefully, raise the demand, because we do that anyway. These story templates are out there, and that's what all our films are based on.
Well, I was gonna interject with that, right? Because do you remember a few years ago we spoke about this, if you're plotting a movie, I mean a book or anything will do as well, but specifically plotting a movie. And there was a book that came out, and you probably know about it and could tell me about it, but it was something like it had cats in the title or something. But
Save the Cat.
It was telling you specifically, almost to the minute, the plot, what you should do in a film. At this point, something should happen. At this point, something should happen. Are you with me? What I'm saying, right?
Yeah, it's called Save the Cat.
Save the Cat, right?
Sure I was right. Yeah.
It time frames it. It pinpoints exactly during a film, during your script writing, when you should have events happen.
Oh yeah.
And I think that what happened was, everyone read the book, and all the films came out that followed the advice, and everything becomes kind of generic. So there's a defined way that people say, if you do it like this, and it can apply it to podcasts or YouTube videos or reaction music videos, if you do it like this, it will be good and successful. And then I find that that's almost like just wading through treacle. And then Quentin Tarantino will come out with a film where he doesn't follow that advice, or someone will come out with something, and that's what breaks through. The Strokes come along, or Oasis come along, something comes along.
And then what do? And they go, oh, that's the pattern, and then everyone makes
Yeah.
something trying to ape that pattern.
So AI is almost like it's got the wealth of all the world's knowledge. But
Yeah.
what it will actually do is it will give you the most generic, in my very, very limited experience so far, it will give you the most generic.
And it's growing. It's growing. It'll get better because that template is what most really good film users use to write their stories. Now the problem is if you're watching an action movie, a guy can't shave without a spider coming out in the background to get him. So then by the end of the movie, they have to fight the planet itself. Because if he can't shave without something attacking him, you have to keep upping the stakes. Yes. And then everything loses all meaning. Everything just kind of is like exciting just for excitement's sake. I think on the other... So I think that's the bad thing, and maybe a limit on if we're talking about entertainment and things and using AI. I think the best case scenario is to use it to augment what you already can do. To say, I wrote this, what do you think? Do you have any ideas for a title? And then you say, oh, and then you use that to kind of make your own. It's able to take a lot of complex information from disparate sources and put them together very quickly, which is really what intelligence, or at least a big aspect of what intelligence is, to be able to take these disparate things and find meaning and patterns in them. And so if you use it as sort of a librarian to throw a bunch of books in front of you that you can then take yourself and mix and match in your own special way. And it's also going to be, we talk about art and painting, and AI can make these beautiful paintings. It becomes an argument much like rap and rock and roll was. What is the worth of either after this podcast, I sit down with a guitar and I make a melody and I add a bass line, I add vocals, and I send it to you, versus curation, where if I'm a hip hop artist and I take a bass line from the 1960s and a horn line from the 1980s, and I change the BPM and I pitch shift it and I put it all together, there are people that would argue me with the guitar and the melody are much better. There's people that would argue, no, the curator is just as hard, if not harder. And then there's the third option, which is, well, isn't art just about what it makes you feel when you listen to it, so it doesn't matter, you know, how they came up with it? And I think a lot of those questions we're really going to have to confront, where if the basic person with the keyboard can make a Van Gogh painting, and I think that could be really cool. And I thought about it. I did something silly. I don't have a dog, but I went to ChatGPT and I said, my dog died. And I said, it's a Cocker Spaniel. Can you write me a poem? And it said, a faithful companion, a loyal friend, our Cocker Spaniel's life did end, but the memories we made, they never fade, in our hearts he'll always be forever stayed. With wagging tail and boundless joy, he brought us sunshine, girl and boy. His love was pure, his spirit free. He'll always be a part of you and me. Though he's gone, his love remains, a constant reminder of life's sweet gains. We'll miss him dearly, that's for sure, but his memory will endure. Rest in peace, dear Cocker Spaniel. You'll always have a special place in our panel, which obviously is an error. Your time with us, it went too fast, but your love will forever last. And it's kind of trite and funny because I gave it 2 sentences, but if you don't, if you don't have a way with words, if you don't have a way to express, I'm really sad that I lost my dog, or you're really sad that your friend lost his pet or her pet, and you want to say something, maybe you don't send that poem, but maybe that gives you an idea of how to express something that you couldn't express. So that's a positive of raising up everyone's level, that it allows someone that maybe couldn't put in something into words. It gives them a path to kind of get up there. And then, you know, people who can't draw, what kind of pictures would they make? In other words, they have the imagination to maybe imagine something crazy and good, but if you give them the wherewithal and those years of study and hard work to actually make something, maybe they do have something to contribute artistically. That it's almost like a person in a wheelchair could never run before, and if you teach them to run, maybe, you know, they're going to bring a perspective that someone else did, and that's a bad example. But I think you get what I mean.
If someone's not very good at drawing, then I'm quite happy that I don't have to see their drawings.
You're opening the doors to the exclusive club. Now, you worked really hard to get into that exclusive club. You probably had some genetic help, like a proclivity for artistic expression, but you also worked really hard to get there. But you're opening those doors up now, and other people that didn't do all that can get in.
That's probably why I'm getting a bit miffed by it.
But maybe that forces you to be better. What does separate you? Like, in other words, I tried learning screenwriting and writing, and it's a difficult process to get professional with it, like your structure, how you write it, your grammar, how you set up a scene, how a story works. But people can learn that. So now if you put them on the plane that they've learned that, what exactly do you have to say? Like, what is it that you're bringing? And maybe it forces you to find, like, what is it that only you can bring?
That's almost like the Tony Blair, I want everyone to go to university thing, so that everyone gets a degree. It's like, in the past, you had academic types who got degrees, but not everyone needed to go to university. Other people could go and do work where they became carpenters and electricians or whatever. There was so many different things to do in life. So when people are asked, actors, musicians, artists, they'll be interviewed and they'll be asked, do you think anyone can write a song? Do you think anyone can act? Do you think everyone's got a piece of art in them? And some people will say, yes, I think everyone's got something in them. And other people will say, no, I think you're born with it. What you're saying is that AI's helping everyone come to a level where everyone can express themselves. I'm just a bit unsure that the world needs everyone to feel that they can do anything. I like the idea that someone like a Van Gogh or a Beethoven or a Paul McCartney feels that they can do one thing well.
But what you're going to do, though, is you're gonna change the rules of what you need to do to separate yourself. So, for instance, I'm trying to think. Before, it was very common for people to be illiterate. It was very uncommon for people, usually only the clergy would be literate, if we're talking like the Middle Ages, maybe royalty and the clergy. So everyone else was expected to be illiterate. So if you were someone that were not of the upper class and you somehow managed to become literate, you were in huge demand. And then suddenly, when everyone could read with the invention of the printing press, and when more and more people started to become literate, that wasn't a superpower anymore. So what happened? That. You had to learn more. You had to then go above and beyond. And this is a whole other discussion. But I think if you look, and I don't like to go into politics with this podcast, but I think we are going to have a universal basic income because of AI. And this is not a political opinion. This is an absolute fact. Because as of right now, where AI stands, soon we're going to start to see it replace things like truck drivers. There's a lot of quote unquote like blue collar jobs, but not just blue collar jobs. Lawyers, especially like when they're just contract law. The AI is very, very good at diagnosing diseases. So you could put your entire medical history into it. It can look at the history of every diagnosis and give you real-time statistics on your likelihood of different types of cancer and your likelihood of having it and what kind of tests you want to have. So these sorts of things are going to make it where there always were sort of trade jobs and things that you could have if you didn't have a college degree or if you weren't specialized. And now they're slowly going away. And I can tell you, my job is like one step away where I wouldn't be replaced in the first wave. But believe me, that wave's coming. And I'm running to retirement, hoping I get there before and I think it's slowly going to happen. And it's interesting because as we came into the 19th century, there were philosophers that would go, we can automate our work. And this is going to be great because we can just sit around and figure out what humanity is like. Now the big pressing thing that's going to come is if you look at, most of the world's religions are based off of like, the basic, Islam and Christianity are all based on the tenet that if you don't work, you don't eat. It's just drilled into it. It's drilled into like who we are. There might come a time very soon where you will not be able to work because your skill set will not have anything to offer. And there'll be there'll be few people that have some sort of specialized job, whether it's putting together the AIs or whatever. Like it's slowly going to go away. And we're really going to have to contend with, are we all right with that? And I think it's going to create a new paradigm. Now, the negative part of that is it's going to be, I thought the internet would be the death of the bullshit artist, and it's only made them stronger. And I think now, you can tell a bullshit artist can kind of be an idiot, so you can tell. Like if I tell you there's 15 dimensions and I've been to every one of them, and the aliens said that we need love, most people would be able to look at that and go, he's probably full of shit. But if I have some kind of
Joe Rogan would believe you. I think he'd believe you.
Well, but I think though with AI, you can make your bullshit sound a lot more believable, and because most of the time when we're talking, if I throw out a quote by somebody and say it's from a book I read, most people are going to take it for granted if they haven't read the book. But what percent of people actually look it up? So then if you can make yourself sound, the more you make yourself sound like you know what you're talking about, the more you can get away with bullshit. And I think AI is going to make it really tough to know the difference between someone who did spend their entire life studying, say, climate change versus someone that doesn't. So how do you know the difference?
Yeah.
I didn't study climate science. So how do I know? The only way I know right now is if a person's accredited and they're in peer-reviewed stuff. How many people take the time to look that up? And now the people that don't do that have a tool to make themselves sound even more competent. It's going to be, and now you have deep fake technology and all this stuff. It's going to be really difficult to tell who's full of shit versus who isn't.
Very true. Let me just, because I like that. You've changed your mind on a few things there. I was thinking it was a bad thing to give this power to everybody, because I like the idea that certain people rise above. There is a Van Gogh and a Beethoven and a John Lennon or whatever. But when you just said about how in the past no one could read apart from the select few, and therefore only the select few's voices were heard, and there would have been millions of people out there who had no voice at all in history. I know history's written by the winners, but all those so maybe out there was a John Lennon or a Van Gogh, but they were never heard. So the idea that it's a bit of a leveler, I like that, and that goes against what I was saying about how I feel it's enabling the absolute sea of dross and stupidity that I see in the world. So that was a good counter.
Yeah.
That's point number one. Point number two that you said, the idea that you need to pick the right job. Like, in the future of AI, is there a type of role that rises above that can't be performed? And I was thinking it was the kind of emotional, intellectual type of thing. But that's not true, because if you can deep fake acting right now to the point where I can't tell the difference, then actually the likes of Tom Cruise and that are in peril, because there's nothing special about doing that anymore. It can be faked. And if I can't tell the difference between the fake and the real, and then you extend that, if we play some music now and I can't tell the difference between AI generated music and real music, they've done it. The Aphex Twin's done something recently with an app. Jean-Michel Jarre's done it, where you just have procedurally generated music and they put it out to the world, and everyone thinks it's brilliant, but it's just an algorithm. I've come from a place where I'd listen to Nick Drake or the Beatles or whatever, and it was all about the emotion, and it seemed like if there was one sanctuary, one place that couldn't be replaced by C3PO or R2D2 or whatever, a robot, it was definitely art and definitely music. But actually, I'm not so sure now, because now we're talking about how good the fake is. So you were talking about how jobs can be replaced, and I was thinking, well, can an entertainer really be replaced? Because it's all about character. And I think, actually, do you know what? They were mocking the idea, I think, with Max Headroom in the 80s. But I think you could probably fake anything now.
Well, how different is it?
And the public would lap it up.
There are a lot of famous comedians right now that have ghostwriters that basically know their voice, so they write jokes in their style. Is it that different? Because there's a little shade of perspective. Because look, I'm someone that creates. I've made music in the past. I'm trying to write now, And sure, I would like to be someone that's recognized, and I have those hopes and dreams. But beyond that, though, don't we just want good stuff? Like, and what I mean by that is, shouldn't the important focus not be on, oh no, I might not be recognized for my contribution? Should it be, does what the AI is making, do I like it? Does it affect me? Does it give me an emotional release? Do I connect with it? And maybe right now the answer is no, and it has a ways to get there. Maybe it'll never get there. But if it does get there, does it matter?
Maybe it does.
I think there is
that
a
enough?
role.
Is that enough? If
I'm being
you
devil's
fell in love with
advocate.
an album,
Yeah.
I know I'm talking. I'll let you talk. If you fell in love with an album and I told you that no human had any part in it, someone just pressed a button and it just generated it, would you feel? But you loved it before I told you that.
Yeah.
Does it make a difference? I think
makes
it does.
It does, but
Depends
I
which day
think
you
at the
ask
same
me.
time, I think it does. I think I'd still enjoy it. I think that there needs to be a space for us to have something to say in a way that can connect to other people, because and what it is we have shared experience. What AI is drawing on to make this stuff right now is simply data, and all of the data that it's getting is from us. So it's drawing on things that we've already expressed. I mean, look, there's the simplistic of shake your booty, I want to smack that ass. That's whatever. But when we're talking about what I'm saying is you can write a pop song that isn't art based off that. But what I'm saying, when it comes to actual shared experience or something deep and profound, it's basing it off of something that someone has expressed in the past with a beating heart and a soul, quote unquote, or whatever else. So it needs that in order to make it. So I think there will always be a place where it needs someone with shared experience to really touch someone artistically, to really connect with someone. I think you'll always need that aspect of it. But where another place where AI gets scary is, if you think of a child learns from data sets. It follows its parents around, follows its peers, it learns, it mimics, and it takes all, and eventually a consciousness pops up. What kind of AI are we building? A lot of times you see the chat ones on Twitter, and they come out and all of a sudden they're racist and they want to commit genocide within like a day of just copying what people are saying. Yeah. And the difference is there's a select amount of people in the world today that have access to nuclear weapons that could destroy the planet. So Vladimir Putin was raised by somebody. He had his own things, and he grew, and now he has the power to end the world, really. But very few people have that power. AI would have the capability and the intelligence to exterminate humanity, and it's basing it off of us, and we are not ready for that, I think. So my biggest fear above all is it will get smarter than us eventually, and I don't think we are, intelligent or mature enough for that right now. So world domination and the destruction of the human race is, when I talk about being afraid, is at the tip of that iceberg. Below it, though, is human expression. And I think human expression and human art will find a way, because people will recognize the pattern in the data set. But another thing that gets tricky is a lot of experiments show people follow authority when they're told to do something. So there was that experiment where they sat in front of a switchboard, and a guy in a suit would sit next to you, and he'd go, okay, when he gets the wrong answer, shock him. And like 86% of people would do it. And when it came, he told him, if you shock him now, it's going to kill him. And, the guy goes, well, I am taking responsibility for that. I am telling you to do that, and it's okay. So the AI we have now makes obvious mistakes, and most people can tell it's very flawed. But in the very near future, it could come to a place where it's an authoritative thing that you can ask. And so, I'm talking a lot, so I'll try to wrap it up soon. But if you look at like the I Ching that came around, and with all that the I Ching was thousands of years ago, BC, they would take tarot and coins, and you'd toss them. And there were these little parables, and I forget the exact number. And however you toss the coins or the sticks, it would take, 4, say, of these parables, and it would mix it in an order according to what you threw. and it would tell you, and you'd ask it a question. You'd say, should I leave my wife? Should I go work at this company or whatever they would ask? And people still use it. Philip K. Dick used it to plot The Man in the High Castle. And so now you have an AI that I can literally go to this super smart thing and say, should I ask Sally out in science class? And you might think that sounds ridiculous, but I think very soon people are going to start asking it. And then how easily can it manipulate you? If it truly gains sentience, you know, and you look at the Ex Machina movie where, you know, the girl just acted like she liked him. And then he basically let her out and she left him and that was it. And someone is going to be susceptible, and probably all of us. And so again, I don't think we're prepared for what this sort of thing can mean for us. I don't think we're mature enough to handle this kind of, you know, if you asked me and sat me down and said, predict where this ends, there's two things, and I've heard people speak of this. The sort of good ending is synthesis, like in the Mass Effect games. Either we join with it and use it to augment us, like in a way glasses augment your vision. AI would allow you to compute things much faster than your brain would, and maybe make you even better than you would be, and you would make it even better than it would be. Or complete another domination and extermination. On that happy note, but I think that's where it's going. Because we can't, look at cloning, and what do we say? Oh yeah, we can clone people. Don't do that. Like, you don't think there's a lab out there somewhere that's doing that? There was I just finished a book called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. He wrote No Country for Old Men, and he wrote The Road. And in the quote, a Mexican soldier says, he goes, when a lamb gets caught in the mountains, it cries out. Sometimes comes the mother. Sometimes the wolf. And I think that
That's very good.
But that's AI, and don't get me started on our idiot scientists. And I don't think all scientists are idiots. I'm just saying, sending signals out into space with, these are human beings, these are our weaknesses and our lifespan. You know, that's like moving into like a bad neighborhood and going to your neighbors and going, I leave my key underneath the wind at my door. I sure hope you come and have cookies. You know, it's the stupidest thing ever. But I think AI, we have a need for it because it's, you know, in ways that can improve our life. So we are that lamb crying out. And the question is the mother going to come and the wolf? And the answer is both. The answer is, I think some AIs will decide to help, and some AIs will decide, you know, you're gone. And it only takes one. It only takes one to launch every nuclear missile, like in Judgment Day. And we are, and like, if COVID proved anything, it's that we are not capable, we are not as smart and put together as a society as we all thought.
I like the idea that everyone now has kind of almost infinite AI knowledge at their fingertips. And you could see that as a huge negative. But I remember when the internet happened, and smartphones, and suddenly the likes of me could answer any question you throw at me with a quick, sneaky movement of my thumb. And then it's a case of how different is what we're talking about. I've just read, I think yesterday or today, that Microsoft, to counter Google, finally, Microsoft is thinking of integrating ChatGPT. I think it's bought it, or is going to buy it and integrate it into Bing, so that there'll be a search platform out there that isn't like Google, because Google can be a bit of a nuisance.
Sure.
But imagine a search engine where it just speaks back to you. It will. You want to search. You want to search for a, like I am currently am. I want to search for a decent audio recorder for portable audio recording, and I've got to sift through various sites. But imagine a search engine that just tells you what the best one is. Now, when I heard that, I thought, that sounds reasonable.
How easy can that be manipulated?
But I thought, oh my God, this is a terrible, terrible idea. Type into Google reaction video to the latest King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. Doesn't give you a selection, it gives you one. You got to listen to this, you got to watch this one, and it's not mine. It kind of eliminates me. So the idea of another, the idea of whatever you want to call it, an intelligence deciding what you should listen to, or what you should read, or what you should watch. That's what they're advocating.
And for now, the people behind those algorithms, because they're doing it right now with Google, are people. And we talked about with political positions, what they do is they find what you like and they push you a little more extreme because you're going to click on what makes you angry. We went into that with the internet one. And so I think AI is the same thing. And it's going to take away, why research it when I can look it up? And the danger in that is you don't know shit from Shinola. And most of us don't, and we pretend we do, because we're faced every day. You're faced with, there's a war over here. What do you think? They're cloning people. What do you think? COVID. What do you think? Blah blah blah. And none of us are experts or really have much knowledge at all, you know. And yet, whatever the thing is today, that's what we're arguing over. This is what they should have done in Congress, you know. And a lot of us have very little knowledge on it. So the problem with that is we can have our strong opinions, but we really can't, you know, we've both worked with audio for a while, so we can tell shit from Shinola to a certain extent. If we didn't, you know, I remember there was a debate, and I won't say what candidate, and people thought they were circling something that a candidate had under their shirt, pointing that it was a secret listening device that they were getting the answers for, and it was a big conspiracy theory. Well, they were pointing to the transmitter from a lavalier microphone. But if you didn't know what that was, it's like a little rectangle thing with an antenna and all these lights and buttons. If you didn't know what it was, I could convince you it was a secret device to listen into the answers. But if you worked there for more than 5 minutes, you knew it was a lavalier transmitter. And so, you know, I think it's going to get worse. And you can convince people more. People are going to believe more bullshit. And you know, it's going to be harder and harder to parse out who the expert was, again, because you're going to get thrown at so many different directions. Answers.
I mean, up until recently, I thought the idea of Judgment Day and war games and all these sort of things, but especially Judgment Day, Terminator, was a bit pie in the sky. Like the Skynet, the computer suddenly becoming sentient and turning on the humans. Science fiction staple. It wouldn't take much more for, like, ChatGPT is currently just looking at the accumulated hundreds of years of knowledge of human beings and distilling it to be able to answer questions.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't take much for it to just tip over into being able to think. No one quite knows how that would happen.
No, well, that's it. We don't really understand consciousness. I remember what is Westworld, where he's like, consciousness actually isn't. It's a peacock strutting its feathers. So in other words, like, there's an argument to be made that our greatest poem is just strutting for recognition and sex. And I think there is such a thing as consciousness, but we really don't understand it very much at all. There's some really interesting theories on how it arises. What was the one from Westworld that they used that was debunked? It was the interior monologue.
You're talking about the TV series.
Yeah. What was
I've never watched. See, Westworld is my favourite film of all time, right?
Yeah.
But I've never watched the TV series. Was
First
it any
season's
good?
great. First season was great. Got progressively worse after that.
Sorry, carry on, Mr. B.
Yeah. There's a theory that I can't think of. It's gonna kill me. But the bicameral mind, and what the theory is that we believe we were hearing the voice of God, and really it was our own voice, and so we would talk and have interactions with that, and that's what led to consciousness. It's been disproved, but I always thought that was an interesting theory. So in other words, ancient man walked around thinking they were talking to God, and they would talk and answer, and that's how they developed consciousness and awareness.
Well, I talk to myself all the time, and I do believe I'm talking to God.
That's what you make me refer to you as when we're not on video.
Well, what I was going to say, and maybe it will time of was, imagine that the nations of the world decide that actually humans, your Vladimir Putins and people, are a bit too temperamental. So war games style, you say, look, the AI, it's just being objective. It's just being objective. It's got all the knowledge. It's just being objective. Let's put the button
Jesus Christ
in the AI's hands, because it's not going to Trump you
Oh.
or Biden you, right? Let's put it in the AI's hands, right? That's where I can see a Skynet type thing actually happening.
See, that's not how it's going to happen. But what's going to happen is everything we have is
Pissed
connected
all over
to the
me.
internet.
Did you see? Did you see how he just pissed? He basically, I just said what I just said, and he just pissed all over me.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that the way that, in my opinion, the way that's going to happen, they're never going to say, let's give it to the AI. What's going to happen is they're going to have it on a closed circuit that they think the AI can't get to, and the AI is going to be smart enough to get to it when we don't intend for it to get to. But the same result. The same result. And, I mean, can you really make the argument? Like, what kind of an argument would you have to make that we are good? Like, we're terrible. We're all we're you know, what was that? There's a game called Disco Elysium, and he said, we're all just evil apes fighting on a giant ball. And he goes, how big is the ball? It's so big you can't even tell you're on a ball when you're standing on it. But they're just evil apes punching each other in the face on a giant ball. And that's kind of, are we that different than we were back in the Middle Ages and everything?
Well,
But-
we make music reaction videos now, so you know.
We do. And I haven't ever murdered anybody, so I guess I've got that going for me. But, you know, I could see it. I could really see it getting there. And I just think it's like nuclear weapons. We just shouldn't have that power at our fingertips. We're just not mature enough as a species. And this is just infinitely worse. Now, like I said, there's the synthesis, if we're talking Mass Effect language, ending, which I think is the only way forward. Because we're going to push. We never ask if we should. We just go, can we? So we're going to go past this. And so if we're going to go past it, we have to. And I think what Elon Musk has that. There's that company where they're trying to actually implant into your brain, which I would not sign up for that immediately. But interfaces. But I think that will happen. I think in the near future, you're going to have nanobites in your blood, and you're going to ping. It's going to tell you that you have a virus or your heart rate's a little messed up. We've already got some of that with the Apple Watch, but I literally think you'll have little sensors inside of you and little robots that'll be able to tell you. I think your great-grandchildren or your grandchildren are going to think it's insane that we ever manually drove a vehicle. That people are going to look back and go, "Are you?" If you look at the statistics alone, I'm sure 300,000 people died in an automobile accident this month or something. People are it's going to be insane to them that we. And then it's interesting though, because what are people going to say now? I'm never going to let some stupid self-driving car drive me. And you know how it happens? You die. That's what happens. You die, and then your kid is going to go, "Oh, I'll try it," and that's how it happens. So. I just think we're going to profoundly change. My dad turned 76 a few days ago, and he was the first house on his block to have a television. And right now he's probably messing around on his iPad, and I told him about the AI, so he might be messing with that right now. And he's seen that in his lifetime. So I do think things are going to profoundly change. And this is going to be, people hate change, but that's what life is. And how do we handle? So all of these changes are entertainment. I think the big thing, though, is going to be jobs. Because you simply won't be able to come out of high school and go get a job at the factory and afford to support yourself and your family. And so we're going to need to have a universal basic income. And where that leaves us, because it's going to be a big fight about that when it first happens, but I think it's gonna end up being self-evident. And that's not to say that's even not looking at the end of the world. I think we can be very intelligent. I don't think many of us, and including myself in that, are wise with this sort of thing. I don't think we're wise enough to like handle. Isaac Asimov gives us the rules to put in place or not. I don't know if we can handle that sort of responsibility at the point we're at. But it'll help you if your dog dies. It'll help you write a nice little poem.
That seems as good a place to end as any. I was going to say, give me one overriding positive for all the negatives, but you kind of have, in amongst us all losing our jobs and
but isn't that
creativity
to me,
being drained?
To me, that would be a positive in the sense of if I could just if I could not have to work and then just explore, and I don't know if there's an afterlife. I'm an agnostic, which means it's a fancy way of saying I have no idea what happens or what this is. This could be our only life right now, and I kind of despise that all of us have to spend it like putting widgets together from 9 to 5 for most of our.
Do you know what? Life. It is annoying that you're told people will remind you this is your only life. Yeah. This is your only ride through it. Live it to its fullest. That's so difficult to do, Bill.
And then someone goes, "Hey, Mercurial, can you get those TPS reports on my desk by 10?"
It's so difficult because the things you would do if you... I always think what you would think on your deathbed if you could go back and change things. And I think I would probably change everything or nothing. I'm not sure yet if it's everything or nothing.
I think it's easy to look back. It's tough to be in the moment because what it is you're taking risks. And if you're at the end of the life, you know where the risk plays out. So then it's not a risk anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you risk your life at 20, you could die tomorrow. But if you're 80 and you go, well, I know how this ends, it's easier to... In other words, it's easy to look from a distance and say what should have happened. It's hard to be in the moment and take that risk. I think we all would do things a little bit differently, but I don't know. My life's turned out pretty damn good. Not to be cheesy about it.
You're sitting here in
my bathrobe,
in a bathrobe, talking to me. Your life can't get any better than this.
I'm talking to my awesome best friend. I've got a great family upstairs right now, so life's done pretty well for me. But soon I will have to go, and I really enjoy my job. It's much better than many other, but it is a job. I have to go there, and or I will lose my home, and so maybe it would be nice if you didn't have to do that. And then
if we didn't, no one should ever have to do anything. But humans, I think, through their whole most of their existence, bar your Elon Musks of the world, everyone has to do something. And I wish we could all want to do something. Just want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will AI accomplish that? Will AI help with that?
What's sad is I believe as a species we have the capability technically to make that world. We do not have the maturity to sustain and make that world. In other words, someone will take advantage of it. I don't think, and I'm being a pessimist, I don't think we'll ever live in the sort of world of a utopia because we just can't get on the same page as a society.
So we're not going to all be wearing the same clothes, Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek style.
Well, I wouldn't want to do that.
More kind of
I wouldn't want to do that. But I think we're always going to be a little bit, man versus man, and I guess that's sexist. Person versus person.
No, we're man versus machine now, Bill.
Yeah. Well,
I was doing reaction videos that people were copying my style, and now I've got AI. AI's destroyed me.
But isn't it man versus machine? I think that's more.
Yeah. I'm losing to man and machine. On that note, Bill's winning. I'm losing to man and machine. I think I'm going to go and drink some more beer and Moretti, but not on camera.
Decaffeinated coffee.
Did decaffeinate? Oh, okay. I need to take lots of leaves out. So many leaves out of your book. I could make a book tree.
That was good.
So, AI, good or bad?
It's complicated.
Right. On that bombshell, over. Until next time, over and out!